Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney episode. My name is Anna Mardal. Today we are going to continue Rise from the Ashes. I believe we are going to be interrogating Officer Cowboy.
The court will now reconvene for the trial of Miss Lana Skye.
Emma didn't come back. Emma, as you may recall from the last episode, ran off because she was emotionally distressed to learn that the case we keep talking about is one she actually participated in. I don't know all the details, but given that she and Lana are orphans, I'm going to assume that it's how their parents died. Although that doesn't seem quite right because we have a list of victims and none of them had the last name Skye, so I'm not quite sure.
Allow me to call the next witness to the stand. The officer in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day of the crime. Witness, please state your name and occupation.
Me, partner? Oh, I'm just a man, same as you, wandering the trails of civilization.
Occasionally helping the elderly across intersections when needed. Yes, we get it.
I appreciate that Edgeworth is as done with his shit, as immediately done with his shit as I am. Oh, I know. You're a patrolman.
And as for my name, if you listen hard enough, you can hear the howling wind calling it out. To be exact, it's Jake Marshall, Your Honor. I've never heard Edgeworth described that way before. Now, Mr. Marshall, let me ask you something. You were in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day the crime took place. Is this correct?
According to the papers, partner.
What do you mean?
A desperado's soul is as boundless as the desert sands. No paper can sum it up.
Yeah, I'm done too. Maybe it's best we get on with this quickly. Please share with us your testimony of the day of the crime. In plain English.
My job was to keep a wary eye on that bone orchard. They said I was supposed to make rounds 3 times a day, but that ain't my style. Besides, the room's protected by 2 security systems anyway. If I remember right, I was at the street saloon at the time it went down. I'm just an innocent traveling man, so if you're out of ammo, it's time I hit the trail.
Oh, you're not getting off that easy. I can't say I particularly care for your attitude.
I can't say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complaining. Wait a minute. What do you mean by 2 security systems? I mean the security cameras and the ID card reader. I reckon even a cowpoke like you knows about these. What about the fingerprint-activated locks on the evidence locker? Fingerprint-activated locks? What kind of newfangled doohickeys are those? So he doesn't know about them? That doesn't mean anything.
He's not good with machines, or with following orders.
Everyone's got their weaknesses, don't they, Mr. Prosecutor?
This one seems like trouble. Okay, Mr. Wright, he's all yours.
All right.
So, he says he wasn't there, but we have this fingerprint. Officer Marshall, doesn't it strike you as odd? You being called to testify like this? After all, you weren't in the security room at the time of the crime.
And yet you dragged me down here. Explain yourself, partner.
It's quite simple. You left a very large trail behind at the scene. Or to be exact, a handprint.
Listen real good, partner. Like I said, I'm the caretaker of that crypt. I pay my respects, make my rounds about once a month. It's only natural my fingerprints would be in there.
I only wish it were, officer. But you see, your fingerprints were covered in blood. Witness, what's the meaning of this? Your blood-stained fingerprints were at the crime scene? The blood was wiped away. However, a luminol test clearly revealed this. Well, Officer Marshall?
It seems to me there ain't a person in this room with a head on his shoulders.
I take it you have an explanation then, Officer Marshall. About the blood-stained fingerprints. You may begin your testimony about these fingerprints, found at the scene of a crime.
Like I said, it's only natural for my fingerprints to be in the evidence room.
You know what else I just witnessed? Well, we'll get there in a second.
One of them happened to be at the same place as the bloodstained handprint. The murderer touched the locker where my fingerprint was by chance. The bloodstain and the fingerprint are completely unrelated.
Didn't you know the murderer was wearing gloves? I had nothing to do with it. The witness's testimony appears valid, though there's room for doubt.
Life wouldn't be any fun without doubt, partner.
The defense may cross-examine the witness. How does he know about the gloves? How do you know that?
Now, I may be a loner, but I still keep up with my job. I read the reports.
There was a blood stain at the scene, thought to be left by the murderer.
That's right.
It was found on Detective Gumshoe's locker. However, no fingerprints were detected on that handcuff. We tried that too. So that would mean the murderer, wearing gloves, happened to place their hand on top of Officer Marshall's fingerprint. Happened.
That's the only logical conclusion. I can't let him squirm out of this one. I've got to find something. Something decisive to tie him to the crime scene.
How did you put it? You pay your respects once a month?
Yeah, that's right. That, and one more thing. That locker happens to be mine. What do you mean? I mean what I said. That's the locker I used when I was a detective. The locker I still use. Still use? All that's in there now, that was a heap of broken dreams. It'd be strange if my prints weren't on that locker.
His fingerprint data was never removed from the locker's programming. Wait, then how did he not know about the fact that it's... He must have been using the fingerprint lock all this time without knowing.
Now you're starting to get the picture, partner. The picture? This seal of blood in the desert is just food for the buzzards. There's only one reality, and that's this. So long as my trail isn't in there, you can't say otherwise.
This isn't getting us anywhere, Mr. Wright. Please consider carefully where you're going with this cross-examination. Now then, continue your testimony, Officer Marshall. Well, you waved the tape at us, so I feel like...
You want to tie me to this crime, isn't that right, partner? If so, that video is the only direct evidence you have. But that video is next to useless. It's full of blind spots. Places you can't see. The camera's panning back and forth, the floor isn't shown. If someone was familiar with the camera's position, they could leave the room without being caught on tape.
We don't have time for your speculation, Mr. Wright.
Well, Mr. Wright, if you can show us evidence in the video that proves Officer Marshall was present, please do so now.
Well, I don't know of any evidence, but I'm going to try.
Allow me to point out your mistake, Officer Marshall.
Tread carefully, Mr. Wright, or you might wind up being the one making the mistake.
You know what, honey? I did not get you off murder for you to sass me like this, so you can keep it to yourself. Bless your heart. Now then, let's have another look at the video. Show us this incriminating evidence.
Wait, so backspace is pause. Let's rewind to go back to the very beginning. Oh, we can step. Okay, so there's his locker. That's where we found the print. It's that one over here. On the far left.
And he didn't know that these were fingerprint locks? I find that really hard to believe. What's his face said he left on him and wrestled the knife away from him, but I don't think he did.
That's different. The cloth is sticking out.
Take that!
Bringing our attention back to the security camera is a mistake I'm afraid you'll not soon forget, Officer Marshall. The days are short in Texas, and so are our tempers. What? We have long days. In the summer. Could you sum up what you have to say in 8 words or less? You're a lying, pretentious jackass who isn't Texan. Very well. You can clearly be seen in this video.
Exactly 8 words. Not bad, partner.
The key lies in a certain locker shown in the video. That locker with the white cloth sticking out. That was the witnesses. Now then, let's rewind the video a bit. Oh, the white cloth. It's gone. What's the meaning of this, Officer Marshall? So because he didn't know that the lockers were fingerprinted, it did not occur to him to not pull stuff in or out of his locker because I don't have anything. Surely if he stashed something there and that was caught on camera, it would point back to him whether it was, I don't know. Doing the best I can here, but it's not making a lot of sense. When the crime took place, the white cloth wasn't there. Then it suddenly appeared. There's only one explanation. Officer Marshall, you were in the evidence room at the time of the crime. What's more, you opened your locker when the camera was turned away.
Hang him!
Surely he would have known.
Hold your horses. Sorry, partner, but you got the wrong man. So what if my locker was open? That doesn't mean I'm the one who opened it.
Were you not paying attention? At least Edgeworth is in his smart mode right now.
The murderer needed to hide something, so he opened a locker and stuck it in. It's not my fault he happened to choose mine. Why is everyone staring at me like I'm a wanted man?
This guy isn't just playing dumb. He really is dumb. I hate to rain on your parade, but you're the only person who can open that particular locker. I mean, unless there's like a master print somewhere, which honestly I feel like there ought to be, because frankly it doesn't make sense that there's no other way to get in besides, you know, if somebody dies, then you just have to drag their corpse into the from the morgue. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So, but they keep saying that you're the only one who can get in, so I think we have to trust that that's true.
Oh yeah? I call your bluff. You say I opened that locker. Now prove it.
Okay. That's why it's in our evidence, I guess.
A fingerprint sensor?
We've literally been talking about it for hours now. We talked about this earlier today. The lockers can only be opened by the detectives they belong to.
What kind of crazy talk is this? In any case, the locks aren't that obvious. There are even some people in the force that don't know about the locker fingerprint locks. Sheriff, what do you have to say in 8 words or less?
Is he chewing on jerky? Is that what he's got? Is it jerky? And then apparently he farted so hard that it made his poncho blow. That happens sometimes.
Order! Order! Witness, explain yourself. If this is a joke, it's the worst I've ever heard. I assure you this is no joke, Officer Marshall. Now then, please tell us what you were doing in the evidence room at the time of the crime.
It's jerky again. I swear he's... Or leather? Maybe it's a leather strap? Why is the judge saying Olay?
Please answer the question.
What is he now? A bullfighter? Thank you!
That's all right, Officer Marshall. I believe we can figure the rest out from here. We can?
Have a look at these floor plans.
There is no place for someone to hide in the evidence room. Yet Officer Meekins didn't see Officer Marshall. If that's so, then where was the witness? It seems Mr. Wright has an answer. That's right. The only possible conclusion. Well then, let's hear it. Where was Officer Marshall at the time of the crime?
Surely this is obvious? He was the quote-unquote victim?
Officer Marshall was standing right here.
But that's
where the victim, Detective Goodman, was. The man wasn't Detective Goodman. I believe the victim in the video is Officer Marshall. It It was you, dressed up like Detective Goodman.
Objection!
But that's preposterous. Officer Meekins witnessed the detective at the crime scene. Once he saw the man's face, he'd know for sure.
Objection!
May I point out, Officer Meekins did not know Detective Goodman. He also testified about the man's reaction when confronted. When I entered the evidence room, I asked him to show his card, sir. And how did Detective Goodman respond? He suddenly pulls a knife on me! Something about the officer's story puzzled me. If the man had his ID card, why didn't he just show it? Yes, he would have needed it to enter the evidence room, so he must have been carrying it. Why wouldn't he show his... the card that goes with him, his marshal badge and his marshal face, and just be like, everything's fine, go away now. Not sure. The answer is simple. He couldn't show it. As you can see, Detective Goodman's picture is on his ID card. Oh, I get it. If he showed it, his cover would have been blown. But he could have shown his ID. He has a locker in there, and he goes in there regularly, so again, why not pull out his other card, the one that said Marshall, with a picture that matched his face, and say, oh, me, I'm not doing anything, I'm just looking around, get out. That's the part I'm not getting. Officer Meekins would have realized the man wasn't Detective Goodman. Do you have anything to say to this, Officer Marshall? You've got quite an imagination, partner. We've got a term for that. It's called circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence? You're gonna have to do better than that to break a detective. Unless you have hard evidence proving I dressed up as the victim. I can't say I particularly care for your uncooperative disposition. I can't say I care for your beard, but I'm still not complaining. Well, Mr. Wright, do you have any evidence proving beyond a shadow of the doubt that Officer Marshall dressed up as the victim? Well, who am I kidding? I don't have anything like that. I can see the fear in your eyes, partner. Seems you're the one who couldn't take the desert heat. This can't be happening. It's so obvious he's the one. What can I do? You have any ideas, Edgeworth? It looks like your lack of experience has finally been exposed. You better be helping, buddy. I'll pass on to you what someone told me when I was just starting out. When you've run into a wall with no place to go, return to the basics. The basics? For me, that would be what Maya used to tell me. Phoenix, try thinking outside the box. shouldn't look for proof that Officer Marshall was in disguise, but rather I should look for evidence that came about because he was in disguise. Why do you think this locker was open in the first place? What do you mean? There's no reason for Officer Marshall to open his locker at the time of the crime. Yet he did, despite the chance that it might be discovered later, as it has been. Which means he didn't originally plan to open his locker. According to the defense's argument, Officer Jake Marshall dressed up as Detective Goodman at the time of the crime. Then, after the crime was committed, he opened his own locker for some unknown reason. The fact that a white cloth is sticking out of the locker seems to indicate he opened it in order to put the cloth inside. So what is this piece of cloth? Perhaps the video is the key to these unanswered questions. We don't have any evidence, so the video is my only shot. Very well, let's watch it again. Surely that whole trench coat couldn't fit in the locker, could it? But that's got to be what it is. There was blood on the trench coat.
Take that!
That's got to be it. For some reason, you disguised yourself as Detective Goodman and entered the evidence room, though I don't know to what end yet. Yet. However, something unexpected happened. Officer Meekins barged in on you. When asked to show your ID card, you pulled a knife on him. However, Officer Meekins panicked, and the white coat you were wearing was soiled with blood. A bloody white coat. You couldn't walk out like that, so you hid the coat in your locker. Not bad, partner. I thought so. Now then, Officer Marshall, are you ready to tell us the truth? Looks like I underestimated y'all. I hope you're happy now, Mr. Edgeworth. Well, yeah. He helped me. 2 years ago. If you were only half as persistent then as you are today. We all wouldn't have to be here now, would we? I was just starting out. It was literally my first case. Officer Marshall, tell the court what you did. All of it. Alright. It seems the time has come. I had to do it that day. I couldn't just stand by and let it die. I stole the detective's ID and dressed up like him. I planned to take out the evidence. Why did you need to dress up? The security cameras, that's why. It wasn't that he couldn't have shown Meekins, oh yeah, it's totally just me, because he knew that was Goodman's locker, and Meekins would have questions about why he was using Goodman's locker. In fact, even if Meekins could be bluffed, because let's face it, Meekins is not very smart, he had to be concerned about what the security cameras would show. Even though the security cameras were wiped, so apparently they're not that hard to manipulate. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out. He managed to escape. I knew which areas wouldn't be caught on camera. There wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 5:15. So the supposed victim was really you. But there's one thing I still don't understand. Traces of a large quantity of blood were found on the floor of the evidence room. If no one was murdered, how could that be? Officer Meekins managed to cut his own hand. My guess is he's the donor. We didn't run any kind of DNA test on it. Wonderful. Speedy justice! It was way too much blood for such a small donation. Alright, we're just gonna press on everything. Why not?
Hold it!
When you say it, you mean... Do you even have to ask, partner? The SL9 incident. 2 years have passed since that case was closed. It was going to completely end with the transferal that day. Not if I have anything to do with it. That incident's not over. What did you hope to accomplish by sneaking into the evidence room? When a case is closed, only the case's lead detective can look through the evidence. I wanted to have a look at it myself. One more time. No matter what the cost. I don't care what anyone says, partner. That case is mine. But Officer Marshall wasn't in charge of that investigation. Why does he care so much about it? That day was my last chance. That's why I stole the detective's ID.
Hold it!
Why did you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman? If I didn't make it look like Goodman was carrying out the evidence transferal, I'd be arrested for stealing evidence, which wouldn't get me anywhere. So you did it to fool the security camera. And the detective's ID card? I stole that the morning of the incident. So that really was why Goodman started filling out the lost ID form. Lost item form. I returned his ID card. I left it on the floor in the prosecutor's office parking lot. The ID card I found was left there by Officer Marshall. So essentially, You managed to succeed despite your lack of foresight.
What do you mean, partner?
I mean the fingerprint-activated lock, of course. No matter how well you disguise yourself, you can't change your fingerprints. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have been able to open that locker yourself. But you could because a rubber glove happened to get stuck in the door. That means Detective Goodman must have opened the locker before Officer Marshall.
I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out.
You pulled a knife on Officer Meekins and tried to drive him off?
Let's just say I was a little surprised. I only planned on being in the evidence room for no more than 5 minutes. I didn't think anyone would actually come in during that short time.
Officer Meekins is a 1 in a million type person. Mistaking a detective for an intruder and demanding to be shown his ID. I'll have to think a little more about his raise this year.
When did Edgeworth get so much influence? Anyway, he threw himself at me and I ended up cutting him slightly. I'm sorry it had to turn out that way. With me knocking him out and everything.
By the way, what happened to your knife?
Oh, you mean this one?
I don't know what to say. You knocked Officer Meekins out and... You did your research beforehand.
Those who go into the desert unprepared don't live long, partner. I didn't think it would make a difference, though. The security tape is erased every 6 hours. If all had gone as planned, no footage would be left.
However, you bloodied your coat in the struggle with Officer Meekins.
If someone was in the security room when I came out, the jig would have been up. I opened my locker and stashed it in there.
What was Officer Meekins doing during that time?
What else? He was sleeping like a baby.
So what you're saying is, on that day... The blood found at the scene indicates a crime took place. What are you, blind?
The victim showed on that tape is me, and I'm not dead, partner.
So you stole evidence from the locker.
Actually,
no, I didn't.
Why not? When I opened the locker, the evidence was already gone.
What? Mr. Edgeworth, where is that evidence? It's still missing, Your Honor. Detective Goodman's locker was already empty. Someone else stole the evidence.
Officer Marshall, may I ask you one thing? Fire away, partners. It's a free country. Just remember, I'm also free to decide whether or not to answer.
You can go to contempt of court.
Why did you do this? Stealing a detective's ID, injuring a police officer. This is no small offense.
Moreover, you're an officer yourself. This will have serious consequences. It can't just be forgiven with a simple cut in salary. Not that salary cuts are ever a valid solution.
Like I said, this isn't your case. This one is mine. And you've done a bang-up job of it. You've failed to solve it twice now? I'll do anything it takes to get an answer I'm satisfied with.
Except be effective, apparently. Huh. The witness has an unusual amount of zeal. Let's hear more. Sure, why not?
I just can't forget the SL9 incident. You know why?
You're welcome to tell me why. That case was solved 2 years ago, wasn't it? That's the reason the evidence was stored in the evidence room. Joe Dark was convicted for his crimes. One thing I can say for sure is he deserved his sentence. I remember the Joe Dark case. It involved serial murders, didn't it?
I don't intend to complain about how it turned out, but there's something that still bothers me. Something went down at that trial. Something no one will talk about.
What happened?
I don't know. That's what I'm still trying to find out.
How useful you are! Why is he so concerned with that incident? Maybe I should present him with what I think the real reason is. I had a feeling we'd wind up here sooner or later. Everyone involved here is related in some way to that case. I'd better take another look at the files. So, he told us to look in the file, and in the file, there's a victim named Nero Marshall, so I'm assuming they might be related?
Your Honor, that statement contradicts this evidence.
It does? I don't see anything contradictory.
Really?
Objection overruled. Try to think before you make accusations, Mr. Wright.
What?
Did I do it on the wrong... Fuck you, game. Apparently, I did it on the wrong statement. Officer Marshall, I think I understand. I think I know why you care so much about the SL9 incident.
Sounds like you've been sipping too much cactus juice, partner.
I have the SL9 incident file here. The name Marshall is mentioned in here. In a list of murder victims. Neil Marshall. Are you related to this man? Neil Marshall. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard the name. 2 years ago. He received the same lousy prosecutor award you got. What? A prosecutor? He must be talking about the King of Prosecutors Award. Now I remember. Prosecutor Neil Marshall. He handled the SL9 case before I did. That's right.
He was killed. And the case fell into your hands.
But what's his relation to you?
He was my brother. He was investigating the murders with Damon Gant, the then Deputy Chief of Police. The group of detectives I was part of worked under them. We were desperate to prosecute the killer. John Dark. Joe Dark. My brother fought Joe Dark and was killed. That was the first time That was the first time Dark left behind any evidence. It was all we needed. He was arraigned and incarcerated. The case was finally closed. At least, according to public records.
What do you mean?
My brother couldn't have been killed by Joe Dark. I knew my brother better than anyone. No one could have beaten him in a fight.
That's it? That's your reason? For your insane actions?
There's more to my brother's death than what the records say. No matter how much you try to hide it, you can't fool me.
Well, at least one thing's for certain. Now we know what happened at the police department on the day of the crime. That was the last day the SL9 case could be reopened. Not satisfied with his resolution, Officer Marshall planned to steal the evidence. Disguising himself as Detective Goodman, he entered the evidence room.
Officer Meekins confronted him, so he rendered him unconscious and fled.
It doesn't make sense. Okay, it doesn't matter. Keep going.
Yes, this mystery has finally been cleared up. No murder took place at the police department that day. The things that happen by chance never cease to amaze. At exactly the same time as the murder at the prosecutor's office, this fake murder was going on at the police department.
Chance. It's got to be more than just that.
So if no one was murdered at the police department on the day of the crime, that means the murder in the prosecutor's office parking lot was the real one. Which in turn means only one person could have committed the crime. Chief Prosecutor Lana Skye. You have not proven that.
Objection!
Wait! A verdict wasn't reached in yesterday's trial. Which is why we examined the incident at the police department today. There's only one reason the defendant was not convicted yesterday. There yet remained the mystery of the simultaneous murder at the police department. Seems to me, this boy's got the draw on you, partner. All of the mysteries at the police department have been resolved. No doubt about it. Our sole murder took place at the prosecutor's office. The only suspect is Lana Skye. And the testimony of one Ms. Angel Star is completely incontestable. Were you even there that day? If you have a response, make it a single word or less.
I rest my case. It seems the trial has reached its conclusion. There's no room for doubt.
We literally have not examined any of Lana's case. There's one witness who lied at like 8 different points. This is... You cannot explain this with like, well, it's based on Japanese justice systems. Unless you're trying to see... this isn't just about a justice system being different from America. This is about people crediting a witness who they know lied. And she's the only thing that their case has. Okay.
Well done, Mr. Wright. Thanks to you, I didn't need to waste my time disproving the alleged murder at the police department. There's no doubt what I proved today is true. The apparent murder on the security cameras tape really was fake. But I didn't realize that would end up proving Lana guilty. It doesn't! Now then, the time for verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant.
Your Honor, wait! Emma! The defense has an objection! A scientific objection! Right?
What do you mean? Mr. Wright, are you this girl's guardian? Your Honor?
In a sense. Please, Your Honor, all I'm asking for is a minute of your time. Please hear me out. Mr. Edgeworth, please?
I don't want to leave any loose ends. You want a minute? I'll give you 3.
Plus him. I was kind of in shock. I mean, finding out the SL incident referred to the Joe Dart killings.
Now that she mentions it, the names of both Sky Sisters were in that file.
But that's when I figured it out. I mean, what Officer Marshall was trying to do that day. So I knew his fingerprint had nothing to do with the crime. That left only one thing. The other handprint.
You mean the traces of blood found on Detective Gumshoe's locker? But no fingerprints were found on it, right?
No, but I figured if I examined it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So I ran over there and looked again.
Did you find something?
No.
Huh?
Sorry. I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator after all.
Is that all?
Please don't be mad. I'm just a high school student. But Mr. Wright,
Those traces of blood are the only clue we have. If we can't find something wrong with him... Why was there a bloody, gloved print? And why was there so much blood in that room? If anyone can save Lana, it's you! Time's up. Now, Mr. Wright. With regard to the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain? It appears the defense is troubled by the other blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, a handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this? Mr. Wright, I'm so sorry I can't be of any more use. But still, if you can't find anything wrong with that blood mark, Lana will be...
Please answer the question, Mr. Wright. We don't have all day.
Yes, Your Honor. If I've ever needed to concentrate, it's now. What could be wrong with the handprint on Detective Gumshoe's locker? Could there be something I'm missing?
Objection!
This handprint left at the crime scene clearly shows a contradiction.
The only thing that seems clear is your grasping, Mr. Wright.
You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them? Take a good look at these floor plans. Something is missing.
Missing? You mean something hasn't been drawn on there?
Yes, something that, when drawn, will completely change the meaning of the blood mark.
Let us pray the defense isn't simply trying to buy time.
Very well, Mr. Wright. With all this evidence here, there's got to be something I can use. Which item can prove something is missing in the floor plans?
Not the files. Not the video. Not the fingerprint. The jar was in the locker, I thought. The rubber glove was on the tape.
Is that it? But why? Why would we care? But it says it was in the evidence room and we saw it on the camera. It was blocking the scene on the camera. Oh god, don't give me a demerit. Please don't give me a demerit. What about that piece of plywood? How are you back on the stand? I thought Emma was there. The Blue Badger, mascot of the police force. Defender of truth, guardian of proof.
Explain yourself, Mr. Wright.
Please look at the floor plans of the crime scene. The Blue Badger is not here. So? So watch what happens when we put him in. This is where he was dancing at the time of the crime. Well? Well, what? Ezra sees it. It was in front of the locker? As long as the Blue Badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at this spot on the locker. What? So that means, what does it mean? Honey. It means it can't be done. What are you saying? Blood traces were undeniably found on that locker. Don't look at me, I didn't put it there. Mr. Wright, think it through scientifically. Emma. On that afternoon, Officer Meekins was the one who brought the Blue Badger into the evidence room, right? After he put it down, it would be impossible to leave a handprint on that locker. So that must mean that this blood mark was left there before the Blue Badger that was brought in. Just one moment. I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash in my courtroom. You do all the time. It may sound far-fetched, Your Honor. This is the only possible explanation. On February 21st, in the police department's evidence room, blood was spilled not once but twice. But how? One time was captured on this tape, taken by the security camera. Officer Meekins cut his hand, from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem is the other time. Someone bled prior to the struggle shown on this tape. It had to have been Detective Goodman when he was really murdered. Yes. That's ridiculous. I refuse to accept your absurd claim. It's another moved body case like the samurai. That's what I've been saying. The murder portrayed in this security tape has been proven to be a fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark found on the locker. So then, assuming this murder you purport really happened, when did it take place? I demand that you show evidence that proves when it occurred. When did the first incident occur? The defense claims that prior to Officer Meekins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was posing as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room. That's right. The blood mark on the locker proves this. Very well. Then tell us. When did this first incident occur? As Mr. Edgeworth said, proof must be presented. Proof that shows when the murder took place. There's only one piece of evidence that can show that. It's gotta be the login. Especially with the missing ID, this one. I don't know who 777 was. If the crime took place inside the evidence room, then the killer would have had to enter it. And in order to do so, an ID card would have been required. An ID card. Oh, the ID card record. Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at 5:50 p.m. If the crime took place before that time, it would be 4:40 p.m. Miles Edgeworth? No, honey, the 7-7. Just what have you done?
I never would have figured you had the nerve, boy.
Drop the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me.
No, I ain't getting it.
I'm afraid I don't understand either. It's clear from the luminol test that blood was there. When the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood.
That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murderer.
I would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. That's physically impossible.
That would mean the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room. Let's look at the chart again.
I keep telling you there's another one on there. Oh yeah, now we're gonna notice it.
There's only one other card number remaining. 777.
Talk about a lucky number.
But wait, that doesn't make sense.
How could Detective Goodman have entered the evidence room?
That's a good question.
Since there's no record of his card being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murderer.
But
in order for that to work, he had to lose his card and fill out a card replacement request. Before he went in there with the murderer. Are we all agreed on that?
that's the only plausible explanation.
He went in with 7777.
Mr. Edgeworth,
Please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number is 777. That's 1 7's too many, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I'm unable to look up the owner of that ID card. At least, at present.
what?
Explain yourself, son! The ID number belongs to someone with a rank of captain or higher. Well, that narrows it down. Someone who is a so-called executive officer. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity.
Objection!
Who does? But that's ridiculous! I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority. If an official charge filed against an executive is accepted. An official charge?
You're all alike, aren't you? With your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor office operates.
It's literally a cop's ID. This does...
I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate it if you would keep your slander to yourself. Slander, is it? Okay. Let me ask a question.
Yes?
Not to you. To the defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive.
Lana?
Objection!
Don't be stupid. She's been charged with murder. Of course we've looked her up. It's not 777.
Don't play me for a fool, partner. It's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing about that incident.
The SL9 incident.
Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In the trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence?
What? I thought Edgeworth was the prosecutor and she felt like he cheated. Friends, I am confused. I am confused. Is she in the stand now? Is the stand just where we put people who are talking? Is that what we're doing?
Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor?
I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth.
2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution for that trial. At that time,
Occasionally, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least I did. Lana! I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law.
Defendant, just what are you saying? Now I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During that trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say you did?
Chief Prosecutor, you didn't! I don't have to, Officer Marshall.
why won't you answer him?
Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to in order to get the verdict he deserved. But Lana! Even if it involved forging evidence. Oh my God. I've been a fool. I've been a fool. I thought she was the source of the rumors about Edgeworth because she was suspicious of him, because she knew something had been shady and she figured he had to be in on it. I did not consider the angle that she might have been the source of rumors about Edgeworth because she knew full damn well who forged evidence and wanted to push off suspicion onto him rather than take the fall herself. If that's the case, then she's confessing because she feels guilty? It can't be Because she's concerned about the witness getting free because... Or the guilty party getting free. Because he's dead now. They executed him.
No. No! Lana's remarks caused such a stir that there was chaos in the courtroom, and further inquiries would have to wait for the following day.
Well, that's exciting. It literally had not occurred to me to think that maybe she was guilty of forgery. I assumed that she had not been doing that. I thought she was innocent. I'm actually so peeved right now because that means that we were given a female character, a female defendant who isn't like an evil bimbo or an old harridan, and she's here as a sin sponge to soak up all of Edgeworth's sins so that we can like him better. I really hope that that's not what's going on. Because if it is, I'm probably going to, like, go put my face in the corner and scream for a little while. Like, what? Maybe she's still innocent, but it's hard to see how. Maybe she's still innocent, but it's hard to see how. So, okay. That was, that was another episode of Phoenix Wright. My name is Anna Mardall. I don't know what happens next. I really don't. I assume we're going to have another investigation day. I'm really struggling with understanding what was going on, or what is going on. I think partly because it feels like they keep mixing up the prosecutors and the cops. And, like, fine, okay, fine. They're probably differently arranged in Japan than they are in America, but I don't understand. Like, the translation is getting confusing to me. Like for instance, whenever Edgeworth says, I can't look up who the ID owner was of the card because it's a higher ranking police officer, and the freaking police officer is like, that's how you prosecutors all work. And it's like, we know it's going to turn out to be Gant. So it's just confusing to me. I don't understand why prosecutors have their own locker in that room if the idea is that the head detective on the case puts all the evidence in their locker. So why would you ever put anything in a prosecutor's locker? I don't understand a lot of things about how they've, kind of separated this out. This is a confusing case. Anyway, I assume tomorrow there'll be an investigation and then maybe one last trial and then we'll be done, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to see this coming together quickly because it feels like there's still this tangle of something going on. But my theory remains that Goodman was killed in the evidence room and stuffed in Edgeworth's trunk. Somehow he survived the blood loss for hours and hours in that trunk. I'm not sure how. That's all I got. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. We'll get there, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna sign off here. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I'm sorry if this case isn't maybe as fun as the other ones were. I feel kind of bad about that. But we'll get through it. I will talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.